Ya comenzó.
Hello, welcome again to one of our series of conversations with Mexicans in New England. Today's topic is academic collaboration across borders, and we have two very important friends of the consulate and specialists, Ramon Sanchez and Griselda Gómez. Thank you, Ramon and Griselda, for accepting to be with us today. This series of conversations are organized with the help of our wide network of Mexican scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, researchers, and educators living in New England to help us bring awareness to the important contributions that Mexicans are doing abroad and specifically in New England. Let me introduce both of our guests today. Dr. Ramon Sanchez is a certified professional in sustainability, renewable energies, green manufacturing techniques, and technology innovation. He is a principal investigator in 3 research projects that deal with the development of innovation ecosystems around the world at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. HSPH is how it's known. Sanchez, Ramon, is also the former director of the Sustainable Technologies and Health Program in the Center for Health and Global Environment at the same school. And before coming to Harvard, he was a corporate engineering manager in a company dedicated to the design and manufacture of furniture and electronic consumer goods. Griselda Gómez was born and raised in Mexico City. After completing a business administration degree, Griselda worked at an educational travel company in Mexico City as a country program manager for the high school year abroad program. She was also in charge of starting and managing the au pair branch in Mexico. After 4 years, Griselda was offered a position as the operations manager for Latin America at the company's headquarters in Cambridge. In August 2006, Griselda joined MISTI as the MIT Mexico Program Manager. She has since been named the Program Managing Director, and she's also MISTI Assistant Director for Health and Safety. Thank you both of Griselda and Ramon again for being with us today. Let us begin with a brief introduction of each one of you about your background. How did you end up working at MIT and Harvard? Griselda and Ramon?
Griselda, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great honor to be talking to you today. So as you just mentioned, I used to work in Mexico City for international travel company. So a lot of it was educational exchange programs. And I was dealing with the operational side of it as well. And when I was offered a position in their headquarters in Cambridge, that's how I moved to the Boston area. So that was November 2002 now. So a few years back. And I continued working for the company, managing their operations sites for Latin America. And then I got the opportunity to be offered the position I'm right now at MIT, which I was very fortunate because I wanted to continue working in the exchange world, but I wanted something more meaningful, something that we could connect, that I could continue to be connected specifically with Mexico if possible. So this program at MISTI, what I'll talk to you about in a minute, offer me that possibility to be not only connected with Mexico, but connect students, researchers, in this case of MIT, with Mexico and vice versa. So that was in August of 2006. So it's almost my 14th anniversary working at MISTI and MIT. Mm-hmm.
Wow. What about you, Ramon? What would you want to share with us about your backgrounds?
Okay, first, I'm an accidental scientist. That's like the best definition of me. I'm a mechanical engineer. I did a master's in manufacturing systems because everything that I was designing was very difficult to manufacture. That's why I did the master's. But then I became forward products lead engineer in Delphi Automotive Systems, that probably right now it's called Delphi Technologies. So I was an automotive engineer for a few years, and we were designing new vehicle platforms and things like the tire pressure monitoring system, things like the flex fuel system. That's how cars run on ethanol right now. And it was a Mexican team, and very few people know about that we were designing those things. And then from there, I was promoted and became first manufacturing manager, and then I became engineering director, of a large corporation. And over there, we had operations in China, Mexico, and the United States, about 11,000 workers under my supervision. And then the situation was this, very, very weird. We started to do sustainability programs, and we used to call them cost reduction programs. And in my factory, in one of the factories in Tijuana, we started to work on that, and we started to, for example, improve the production yields of raw materials that we were using, or reducing electricity consumption, water consumption. We were eliminating waste and so on. And because of that, we ended up saving millions of dollars, close to $68 million in 14 months. And the only reason why we started doing that was because there were some incentives, both in Mexico and in the United States, for sustainable production and sustainable product design. And that's why we started on that. And since we had to estimate health and environmental impacts of what we did, and I didn't know how to do that, well, first we hired someone to do that, but then I wanted to learn how to do it. So I came for a mid-career master's to learn how to do life cycle assessment and how to assess health and environmental damages. And that was in August of 2006. And I have been here since then. I thought that I was going to be here for 9 months only, from September to May. And but I started to help the community, particularly in updating some of the materials that were related to manufacturing operations and pollution prevention technologies and so on. And some of the professors say, why don't you apply for the doctoral degree? And I did. I thought it was a joke, by the way. I thought like, well, they just want to be nice to me. But I applied, and on that year, there were several applications, probably 100 maybe, and only 6 people got in, and I was one of them. And that's how I ended up working for Harvard University. And I have been working at Harvard for 12 years now. So, and that's how I got here.
Thank you, Ramon. Great to understand how that jump was. It was an academic jump, precisely because you came to train. Griselda, tell us more. What is MISTI? How does it work? What kind of projects have you been developing with Mexican institutions?
Yes, of course. So MISTI is MIT's International Science and Technology Initiatives, which is a department within MIT in the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. So the name of MISTI doesn't really say exactly what we do, but basically we're establishing collaborations with more than 25 countries now. When I started in August 2006, I think we were like 7 countries. So we've grown a lot. The objective of MISTI is, as I said, establishing collaborations with other countries, which means it can be with companies, organizations, universities, governments, nonprofits, with the idea of having an exchange, particularly with students. So we send MIT students of all disciplines and majors, in my case, to Mexico. So I manage the Mexico program, and like me, we have other managers that are working specifically with other countries. So my focus is Mexico, and recently I've been working a little bit with Colombia as well. So what we do is we recruit MIT students to do internships, in my case, in Mexico. So these internships in a normal pre-pandemic time would happen over the summer. so between June and August. And the idea is for these students to contribute to a real project. So it's a win-win situation. The company or the organization, university that hosts them benefits from having an MIT student collaborate in one of their projects. And so the idea is that it's a joint collaboration. So the people in Mexico, you know, either managers or students or academics will be working alongside with the student to, you know, on different projects that have the intent to be meaningful. One of the key components of MISTI is the preparation that we give our students before they go, to give them an overview of the country that they're going to be going to. So to step back a little bit, students apply to the country that they want to go to. So it's not like the approaches are like, okay, I want to do an internship abroad, where do you send me? So students that want to go to Mexico, come see me. There's an interview process, there's an application process, and one of the questions I always ask is, you know, why do you want to go to Mexico? And it varies. You know, it could be because they have the language background, so they want to continue practicing the language. It could be because there's a specific project that's a perfect fit for them, so they're excited to go work on that project. And something that's really nice is that we always have a handful of students that are Mexican Americans, which I think is fabulous because they, either one of their parents or their grandparents are Mexican, and they want to go to Mexico and see what it is to go and work and live there for a few months. Maybe they've seen Mexico just by visiting the you know, where their family is from, but they haven't had the opportunity to spend more time. So for me, it's always exciting when students want to go and see you know, what Mexico is and work there. So that's one of our main programs. We also have another one called Global Teaching Labs, where students go during the month of January and teach mostly in high schools, sometimes lower level, sometimes it could be first semesters of university, and they teach in general STEM subjects. So it could be anything from any, you know, physics, math, computer science. They could either teach alongside with a Mexican teacher, or they develop their own workshops and then teach these workshops. So it's a wonderful program as well. So before COVID, our usual numbers would be in the summer around 30 plus MIT students from all backgrounds, majors, undergrad and graduate students would spend the summer in Mexico. And in January, around 20 students do the teaching program. And besides those two programs, we have a seed fund called for proposals every year. And this is for researchers and professors to present. So they have to present a project between one MIT professor or principal investigator and one Mexican researcher. So we have a global seed fund, which means MIT is putting the funds, and it's open to any academic institution all around the world. So anyone can apply to get a seed fund. The seed funds are a maximum of $30,000. And the idea is precisely a seed fund to help them launch a collaboration. So this is a key component of MISTI as well. We want not only students, but also researchers to be connected and work together. So besides the global fund, some of the MISTI country programs have their own funds. So in the case of Mexico, I've had several funds throughout the years. And typically we launch the call for proposals in May, but because of COVID, we postponed it to September. So in September, we'll be launching our next call. And the Mexican fund that I will have this year is with the Instituto Politécnico Nacional. So we're very excited. That means that any researcher from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional can apply together with an MIT professor or PI to be able to collaborate together. So those are the sort of main components that we have. And throughout all of that, I mean, there's many examples of great projects that have been developed throughout all these years. So our aim, again, is to establish these connections, these collaborations. And obviously, as a Mexican working for the Mexico program, I mean, for me, it's not only part of my job, but it's also like it's a personal mission, right? That MIT professors and researchers are collaborating with Mexican researchers.
Great, Griselda. I have more questions about that, but first, let's hear Ramon. 2 questions, Ramon. How did you move, or how did you transition from environmental health to innovation ecosystems? And tell us a little bit about your work developing innovation ecosystems in Mexico.
Thank you so much. And everything started because we could see that there were new technologies. When I was director of the Sustainable Technologies and Health program at Harvard University, we saw a lot of new technologies that were really promising on renewable energies, or it could be medical devices, or it could be, for example, pollution prevention techniques, new transportation things, or smart cities. And we noticed that these technologies were created in other countries, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, but they didn't survive there. And so people with talent there, they had a limitation. They had the talent to create these things, but they didn't have the opportunity to get enough funding so these technologies could survive and thrive in those communities. And so we thought, well, what if we help in creating the structures in the community so they can develop something similar to what we have in Boston or in Silicon Valley? And that will be the innovation ecosystem. And what it means is that everyone in the community is trying to make sure that these people will get sufficient funding to develop their ideas and not depending on the government, but depending on all of the other members of the society. And that's how we were going to make sure that we will have any technologies created there, you know, in these countries, in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, they will be able to survive and create economic development there. But the most important thing for me was that these technologies usually fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And that's why we started to work with communities in developing innovation ecosystems. Is there a way for me to share my screen so you can see one picture only? Because technically what we do is we work with different communities. And I'm not sure if I can share my screen. That will be great. Paulina, I'm not sure. If possible, let me know.
Yes, yes, it is. You can start sharing now.
Okay, so let me share my screen so you can see. And well, this is the other class actually, but it's related to something else. So check this picture right here. This is a class in Mexico. And essentially what we do is we train 1,000 to 2,000 people in every community.
Before COVID, Ramon.
That was before COVID. This was in August of last year, okay? And you can see Paulina right there in the front row next to the governor of the state of Hidalgo. And so what we try to do is to create these massive training programs so people know how the innovation ecosystem works. What is a venture capitalist? How do they reach out to them? How do they reach out now to angel investors? How do they prepare a value proposition, a business plan? Instead of having 150 pages, how do they do it in 20 pages and it's more effective? How do they develop new products? How do they deal with intellectual property? How do they do all of these things? So this is like a massive boot camp for them. So all of these people in society are going to become the critical mass of that particular area in which they are going to enhance the local structures. So little by little, they are going to be building in 2 years everything that needs to happen so you could have a healthy innovation ecosystem, just like in Boston or Silicon Valley. And we go to the communities because it's easier to work there, to understand what the local situation is, and to identify areas of opportunity, but also ways to get around and strengthen the innovation ecosystems. And this is what we do. And we do it because we want to make sure that every time that we go to a community, we usually develop between 90 and 150 new businesses, startups. And most of them are related to fulfilling the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's why we do it.
Thank you, Ramon. Griselda, 2 questions. One is, have you seen in general that the American kids going to Mexico, when they come back, do they come with a broader notion, not necessarily positive, but broader of the complexities of the country? And we knew recently that MIT launched the COVID-19 challenge. Can you tell us a little bit more about that effort?
Of course, yes. So to answer your first question, so our students have to have a bit of a background of the language, especially if they're undergraduate students, so they know the language. Of course, they know the language usually either because they learned it at home or because they took classes and they know, whatever they learned at the classes. And as I said, we give them an overview of different things about politics, the economy, history, to give them that background before they go. But until they go, right, is when they see the real Mexico. And the preparation that we give them, which includes like cultural differences in the workplace, is very helpful for them because they know that they have to, for example, greet everyone, right? It's very important to greet everyone when you walk in the office, things like that. So that helps them. But to answer your question, when they come back, absolutely. They come back with a better picture of what, the real Mexico is. And I can tell you 90+% of students come back with very positive feedback. I mean, they do see the realities, of course, of what the country is facing in, different aspects of issues, but they also see the positive aspects, right? Because if you turn on the news, they might have heard things about Mexico that are negative, right? Plus Cancun. That's like, it might be what they know. And some other students are much more familiar with Mexico because they either have family or because they've taken courses that are like in more depth about the country. But then they come back, I would say, with a deeper appreciation of what Mexico is and what it can offer. Especially the people. They're super thankful for the warmth of everyone, the way they welcome them, they treat them. That's one aspect. And the other aspect, they're truly doing meaningful things when they do these internships. So they're given, in a lot of cases, a lot of autonomy to work on their projects and come up with solutions or improvements. So sometimes when they do internships elsewhere, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but sometimes if they go to a very large company, they might be like, one more intern. But when they do MISTI and the specific case of Mexico, they're, working in real projects. So they come back with a deeper appreciation of Mexico in general, but also the professional side of Mexico that, we are doing important things that are, for them valuable in their own careers.
That's great. So we are creating a network of pro-Mexico people in the US.
Absolutely. And they are my best helpers or promoters of the program, right? And now, as I mentioned at the beginning, MISTI is grown so much. We have so many countries. Students, in a way, have a choice, right? Unless they don't speak the language of the country, but some of the countries don't have a language requirement. So part of my job is make them want to select Mexico. Like, why Mexico? So the students that come back are my best sort of marketing tool. They come back and say, I had a great time. This was my project. I loved it. People treated me really well. So, you know, knock on wood, they've had really, really positive experiences overall, which is great. Yeah. But so my other hat is like health and safety. So we're always thinking about, of course, the health and safety of our students is the most important aspect. So we also prepare them and work with a service provider which students can call 24/7. So they know who they reach out in case of an emergency, you know, regardless of the country they go to. So, you know, that's another important piece.
Thank you. And I would ask you also about to tell us more about the COVID-19 challenge. I understand several Mexican universities participated and you were part of this organization. Tell us a little.
Absolutely. Yes, so the MIT COVID Challenge has been a series of hackathons. There were a couple that were general. There was one for Africa. The last one was Latin America. So MISTI was one of the sponsors of the challenge, but also one of the organizers. So it was an incredible team of people that are MIT and non-MIT that sort of behind the scenes helped put the hackathon together. It's the main organizer is the MIT Sloan School of Management. There was one student in particular, a former student, he just finished his MBA from the Dominican Republic, who was the main organizer and lead, and he was incredible. I mean, this was this massive operation that he did have a lot of volunteers, but he was the one pulling through, so that was quite impressive. So the hackathon happened throughout a weekend, and we had an amazing response. 1,500 participants from all over the world, mostly from Latin America, but all over the world subscribed. So around 4,000 participants and 1,500 were selected. And around 900 mentors applied and around 300 were selected. And we also had about 30 judges. So the idea of the hackathon or the challenge was to come up with innovative solutions in 5 different tracks to help with the COVID-19 challenge. So the name was COVID-19 versus Latin America. And it was an incredible weekend where participants applied individually and not necessarily with an idea in mind. So the first part of the hackathon was get them, they were assigned different tracks depending on what their skill set was and their preference. So we had like a health system, there was one that was supply chain, there was one empowering the informal economy. So each participant was given a track, and there was a track lead. So part of the volunteers that ran the program, there was a track lead. So the first part was getting them together, pitching their ideas and forming teams. This all happened between Friday evening and Saturday morning. So by Saturday, they were already formed, teams were formed and they were starting to pitch their ideas. So the 300 mentors throughout the weekend everything was done via Zoom, right? So that was another quite impressive effort. So mentors would pop in the different team rooms and help them pitch. So it was very intensive. So that was all of Saturday. They could do practice pitches. And then on Sunday, basically, they pitched their ideas to the judges. And I think, Ramon, were you a judge or a mentor, I believe, right? Were you a judge?
I was one of the 30 judges.
Of the judges, right. So So as I said, all of these was volunteer-based. So we had people from MIT, but outside MIT as well, right? Like Ramon, from all over the world, helping this, making this happen. So out of all of the teams, 30 teams were selected, and the website, and I can share the website with you, has a list of all of the teams that participated and which ones were the winners. So right now it's the post-hackathon part of the event, which means another set of volunteers and something that I didn't mention. We had partners we had like, I think 140 different partners from all over the world, specifically from Latin America. And from Mexico, we had, I want to say over like at least 25 or 30, which were different universities, some companies, which was great. So they would either provide mentors for the event, mostly mentors, but now during the post-hackathon, they can help these teams implement the solutions, right? So now they have these great ideas, but now we need to make them happen. So right now it's that process where a set of volunteers plus some of the partner organizations are helping these teams develop and implement their solutions. So in a few months, we'll have better results on which of these different startups, basically, are still up and running.
Wow. So that is a perfect example of how COVID might have slowed down in some areas, but in others, precisely what can be done in terms of collaboration and the Zooming experience. It's fantastic that so many people can be interacting at the same time as if they were alive.
Exactly.
Tell us, how has COVID affected your work in Mexico, and are you working on other projects since COVID? You were working, I remember, with a group in Celaya, with the state of Hidalgo. Have you been able to continue this? And I have a feeling that in your case, it's been more Mexicans learning from the ecosystem experience of Boston, more than people from Harvard going to Mexico. Am I right?
Well, let me tell you what happened. All of these people started to get courses online. That's what happened. Instead of going there to teach, everyone started to have online experiences. So that was the change. The other one was that we actually switched some of our priorities, and we started to develop things for preventing COVID-19. So since early May, I have conducted a class on prevention of COVID-19 every week, about 300 people every class, which will give us about 2,000 people so far that we have trained about COVID-19. And they have been helping me, people in Guanajuato. I did a class in, for example, in Cozumel, Tulum, Cancun, Playa del Carmen. That was the Riviera Maya. Another one was, some of them, in Hidalgo, of course. Another one in Guanajuato. Another one in Guadalajara, with the Universidad de Guadalajara. And another one in Sonora. So we have been going with this, trying to help people to, find out things like something as simple as this. If you wear your face mask below your nose, you are not doing a good job. You are doing 0% of the job of not getting infected, because you can get the virus through your nose, and you are doing only 30% of the job of not infecting other people, because the viral concentration in the nose is twice of the viral concentration that you will have from your mouth and throat. And that's why we have been training people about this. And the only change we have had is that now everyone is helping to prevent COVID-19. And most of the venture capitalists, angel investors, and all of the people that that have been working with the innovation ecosystem. They have been helping precisely in those companies that came from the COVID-19 challenge. Now they are getting links to these investors so they can continue developing the whole thing. And for them, some of them have been really good and some of them have not been that successful, but at least we keep everything going online. And I believe that you will like this one. Did you know that you can make a face cover with anything? From a silk scarf all the way to a cotton blend that will be 60% cotton and 40% polyester. And that has an effectiveness of 74% in stopping the virus, you not breathing the virus. And I teach people how to make their own face mask with a napkin, 2 hair bands, and a coffee filter. And it has an effectiveness of above 85 to 90%, just to be conservative. And that's a really good one. But the killer is this one. This is the level of protection that you will get if people were wearing face masks. And as you can see on the last one, if everyone was wearing a face mask, you will have a level of protection that is between 82 and 93%. So we will reduce infection rates by that amount, little by little. And there was a paper published by Dr. Mario Molina in which when they mandated face mask use in New York City, infection rates started to go down by 3% daily until they went from a few thousand people infected every day, new cases, to less than 100 sometimes. And so these are the kind of things that we have been doing. So the innovation ecosystem is still alive and well. The only difference is that now we are doing everything online. All of the homeworks, all of the business plans, some of them have been modified to include technologies that will prevent COVID-19 or will help to cope with the reality of going back to economic activities. And that is the only difference that we have to find so far. And the good thing is that now everyone in the community is participating in one common effort. That has been the only difference. I haven't been in Mexico because we are unable to travel, since March, but I have been in touch with them. Today, this morning, I gave an interview to El Heraldo de Mexico TV, and it was a national outlet. So I have been really busy. I believe that the problem that I'm having right now is I'm actually working more now that I'm at home because they get me all the time. So it's almost like back-to-back meetings all day, every week. And I'm teaching the summer school. I teach design of renewable energy projects, and I teach sustainable product design in the Harvard Summer School. So it is quite busy for me, but it has been great because now I get calls, for example, from the aviation manufacturers of the United States, all of the conglomerate of them, trying to find out if we could help our group, this group in Mexico, other groups in Latin America, and all of the groups that we met through the COVID challenge from MIT, if we could help them to develop the rules for safe travel, for example. So we have real life implications, and the innovation ecosystems, not just one or two, all of them are participating in this. That has been the change that we had since COVID-19, not traveling and doing everything online in a massive way.
Yeah, and it seems that for professors in particular, it's been quite a challenge in terms of learning to do everything online, and a lot more work. That's true. I've heard it a lot. Griselda, how do you foresee the future of education institutions such as MIT after COVID? I understand that just very few students will be coming back. The same in Harvard. I understand that MIT chose differently. MIT chose for the seniors, and I think Harvard chose for the juniors. Can you both, it's a question for both of you, how do you see at least the next semester happening?
So yes, I mean, it's certainly going to be a very different semester, and we're not sure yet about the spring, but certainly a very different semester, which, yes, as you pointed out, seniors were invited to come back to campus, and graduate students. So all graduate students plus seniors, and this is for the fall. It hasn't been decided in the spring what's going to happen and if a different set of students will be invited back to campus. So yes, so MIT has been very conservative, or had a very conservative approach, which I think is good. They want to keep the campus as less populated as possible to, you know, just to help with the spread of the virus. So most of the classes will certainly be online. And the reason why graduate students and seniors were invited back is because for them to be able to continue their research, you know, they will have access to the labs if they need to, so they can finish up their degrees, basically, especially for seniors. So it will certainly be very different, but all these months has been, you know, an incredible effort from a lot of people to put everything online and make it, you know, as seamless as possible, but also thinking of many creative ways of keeping students engaged, right? Since a lot of them won't be at campus, they still need to feel that connection with the university, and especially the first year students will have a big challenge. You know, this is their first semester, in this case at MIT, and they'll be home. So creating this sense of community will be very important. So there's different task forces coming up with different forms of engagement. And in our case in MISTI, you know, we have to be very creative. We're being very creative about the things we need to do. Our main goals are, you know, what we do is travel, is this mobility between students and researchers, which we're not allowed, we can't do right now. So we have to find ways, and we've been finding ways of converting some of those internships into remote internships, for example. And we will go ahead with our seed on call for proposals in September. As I said, it was supposed to be in May, but we're going to launch it in September with the hope of, you know, eventually researchers, you know, will be able to travel again someday. But for the meantime, I think MIT has done a great job in trying to find that balance and keep the students connected with the campus, because that's going to be a very, very important piece. There were different, as I said, task force. I was part of one in the summer of precisely just coming up with different activities to keep them engaged. And then there's, you know, the mental health piece of it as well, right? We need to make sure that they're okay wherever they might be, either in the US or in their homes abroad. So it certainly will be a very different semester, but, you know, we have our hopes are high that everyone will work to make it be as successful as possible for students. And I know professors, of course, have a big challenge of now doing everything online and being in touch with their students. But I think there were a lot of lessons learned in the spring, which everything had to sort of close up and and see what we do it. So a lot of those lessons that were learned will be applied, and so hopefully the fall will be hopefully less stressful.
Thank you, Griselda. What about you, Ramon? What can you tell us?
Well, in our case, we did a very comprehensive analysis of how to enhance a student experience, and the decision was the following. Freshmen will come during the fall semester because that's their first semester, as Griselda was mentioning. That is where they create the attachment to the school. However, you know, sophomores, juniors, and seniors will not be in campus. Only people, graduate students that are working on research projects will be back. And I don't know if you can see these buildings, but this is where we house them, right here. And so the student density will be really, really low. And we are trying to do that just to create that sense of attachment during the first semester for the freshmen. But then we are switching to the freshmen will go home in December, sorry. And in January, the seniors will come back because remember that they are graduating in May. And so they want to be in campus at the very end. And so that's why graduate students that are working in research projects will still be here, but we are switching the undergraduate crowd. Instead of freshmen, we are going to switch to seniors because that's their final year. And that way we are trying to mitigate or minimize the psychological effects of this thing. We're still working with a hybrid system where we try to teach as much as we can online and keep, you know, classroom physical attendance to a class, to things that are key. Like, for example, it will be like a laboratory, for example, or the medical school students when they need to practice surgical things, or so technically what we are doing is trying to minimize the impacts of COVID-19, and we plan for the whole year. We weren't expecting this. We thought that, to be frank to both of you and to the audience, I actually thought that scientific advice was going to be followed, and that we will start this problem in March and we will finish by late April. That's what I thought it was going to happen, because science is very clear. Wear a face mask and you have an 80 to 90% protection, okay? Use hand hygiene to enhance that, but guess what? If you touch a surface that is contaminated, as long as you don't touch your face, you are not going to get COVID-19. And so social distancing or at least 2 meters apart if you can, but if you cannot, ventilate the area, because that will reduce viral concentration loads in a very significant way, and you cannot get infected like that. And finally, testing, tracing, and tracking, you know, of everything. So I thought that they were going to do that, but it didn't happen in a national way. It was a patchwork of, let's leave it to the governors. Let's leave it to every city. Let's leave it to everyone. And because of that, sometimes it seems like we are getting a handle of this. We are managing this. And then somebody decides, I'm going to open, I'm going to reopen because we need it, and so on. Or it could be just dogmatic, doesn't have to do anything with science. And they open, and that's why we are going up, down, and then super up. And now they are going to take more measures. Probably we are going down, but we may have another up later. So that's why we had to plan for the whole year instead of just thinking for a few months. I was fully expecting to teach my class in the class, well, in a classroom environment in the summer, but it didn't happen. So it was quite something, but I believe that the biggest realization that I had from this is that is the end of expertise. It really doesn't matter that you have been preparing for pandemics or a pandemic event for 10 years, and you have all of the recommendations of what you are supposed to do and how to deal with this. If the leadership doesn't follow or the advice of scientists or people that have been working on this, people at MIT, Harvard, and many other universities, then we will have consequences that are worse than their biggest fears. I believe that the reason why they didn't follow advice at the very beginning was, we don't want to affect the economy. And I saw reports that the economic, the gross domestic product or something failed by almost 10%, like 9.8% in the United States between March and June, okay, the second quarter of 2020. That is catastrophic. And they were afraid just about a few points, you know, a decrease in the stock exchange, the Dow Jones average, and that's why they didn't want to create panic on the population. So I'm gonna stop my rant. I just wanted to let you know that essentially we planned this thing to try to mitigate the impact on our students, but we planned for the whole year because we are bracing for a very long winter, really. I teach a class in Mexico, for example, in Yucatan, in the Yucatan Peninsula, and usually we take students from the universities in the area, from all schools at Harvard, the Kennedy School, the Harvard School of Public Health, the medical school, and so on. And it's two weeks in the Yucatan Peninsula in January. That's the winter term, the winter session. It's not going to happen. We know that it's not going to happen, and we are planning for that right now. And so that's how COVID has affected our activities.
Thank you, Ramon. To end this conversation, would you want either of you to say a final word about international collaboration, U.S.-Mexico collaboration in these times?
Sure, yes. I think it's a reality, right? And we're facing with this pandemic, as Ramon said, we don't know until when. So I think we just need to be very creative in the way we're going to continue collaborating. And we've been super busy as well, even though, you know, this summer we would have hundreds of students abroad doing their internships, and right now we don't. We've spent a lot of our time now, because we have to do things online, developing, you know, different webinars and another set of events to keep engaged with our countries. In my specific case, you know, it's between MIT and Mexico. So participating in the COVID challenge was a great way to pull our partners, you know, which I usually work with in Mexico, and keep them engaged. Okay, you might not have a student right now in the summer, but we can find ways of collaborating. So we'll continue to do that and plan, as Ramon said, for the long term, because we're not sure when this is going to end. So I just want to say that the collaborations will continue, and when something like this happens, we'll find opportunities to even find some things that we hadn't thought of before, right? So I'm pretty sure we'll have great collaborations between Mexican researchers and MIT researchers just regarding COVID, right? Whether it be advancing a vaccine or anything else. So thank you very much. I just say that we're fully committed to continue these collaborations with Mexico for sure.
Thank you, Griselda. A final word from you, Ramon.
I think that even though we have a big challenge, we have a lot of opportunities as well. Because of the crisis and because a lot of people are in an emergency mode, many researchers in Latin America are shining right now. Let me give you one example. If we are doing a risk assessment for all of the hotels in the world, imagine that there is an organization that has all of the hotels in the world. And we are doing a risk assessment of how do you deal with those operations, touristic operations, air travel, and all of those things. Before, they just wanted to see Harvard, MIT, the Ivy League guys working on these things, okay? But now, since we are in a hurry and we really want to get talent from anywhere in the planet, we are getting people from Brazil, from Mexico, from Argentina, that have been working on this for a long, long time. And we are bringing them to the big table. And since this is a virtual table, we don't have to spend money in flying them here and creating these seminars or something in our schools. We can do it online. And these people are shining because then they talk to the CEOs of the biggest companies or to presidents of different universities. And now we are detecting a lot of talent that we didn't have on our radar before the pandemics. And that's something that is happening. So I believe that this will strengthen the collaboration between Latin American researchers and the wider community, research community in Boston, because we have been collaborating really well. And now in a time of crisis, everyone is pulling their weight and we are working together really well. Just to give you one idea, there is a vaccine that is being developed here, which is from Moderna, another one from Oxford. And the one in Oxford is being tested in Brazil. The one from Moderna probably will be tested in some places in Latin America. And those are the connections that we didn't have before. So I believe that research will strengthen from this if we actually can keep these bridges open for everyone.
Thank you, Ramon. Well, thank you both for accepting to share with us your experience, your expertise in MIT and in Harvard with Mexico and the collaboration. And thank you for leaving us with hope of how this pandemic gives us also opportunities. So thank you so much again for being with us in this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.